Wonderful. Okay. So as I mentioned before, my name is Kate. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm moderating for today. We have a great event lined up. So to begin, just want to go through some housekeeping. In this event, we welcome feminists in all their diversities. We commit to cultivating a safe space today where we celebrate each other's contributions, ask questions, and learn something new. Discriminatory language and behavior will not be tolerated. We also want to prioritize the views and experiences of young feminists in this space. So if you've been in this work for a long time, please try to listen more than you speak. We welcome you to use the chat throughout the session, and please ask questions, share your experiences, and engage in the discussion. And just a note on sharing stories, we also want to acknowledge that the past year has been challenging in different ways for feminists and young women across the world. And please be mindful of the diversity of experiences in the room and be respectful in the chat box and our discussions. As I just mentioned, we'll be recording the session today. So if you would not like your name or your story or your contributions recorded, can you please private message Emma in the chat box, or you can email her and she'll be able to share her details in the chat soon. Okay, so our event for today. We're really excited to have everyone with us. So we're going to start with a short video that we created with the cohort of young women last year. We're going to be having a panelist discussion. We've got 5 incredible young women from several countries in the Asia and Pacific. We'll be talking about their experiences as leaders during COVID-19. We'll have a chance for audience discussion. So we might use breakout rooms if there's a lot of us, or we might just have an open discussion in the room. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end. If you've got any questions at any point, of course, pop them in the chat and we'll get to those as well. Without further ado, it's my pleasure to now introduce our panelists. I'm going to read out a short bio for each of the women who will be speaking, and I'll invite them to come off mute and say hello as well, so you can get a feel for everyone's voices before we jump in. So our first panelist is Sivme, who's soon to be 22 years old. She works for the Advocacy and Networking Program at Gender and Development for Cambodia. Sivme is motivated to challenge gender-based violence and gender inequality and help young women to speak up for their rights. Sivme, did you want to come off mute and say hi?
Okay, thank you. Hi everyone, good morning from Cambodia. So yeah, it's quite early in the morning here. It's around 6:30 a.m. Anyway, so I am Sivme from GACI, or Gender and Development for Cambodia. I've been working under Advocacy and Networking Program, and today I'm so excited to be and share all of you what I've been through during the pandemic, and really looking forward to our discussion and hear from everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next panelist is Ramona, who is a member of Brown Girl Woke in Samoa. She's based at the National University of Samoa and the Faculty of Health Science, and is originally from Trinidad and Tobago. Ramona wants all women and girls to be choosers of their own futures, secure in their ability to take care of themselves in a system that supports their well-being. Ramona, did you want to say hi?
Hi everybody, thank you so much to the organizers for organizing this lovely event, and to everybody who's taken the time to join us this morning, lunchtime, and good afternoon. I look forward to a really fruitful discussion.
Thanks, Ramona. Okay, so our next panelists are both joining us from Papua New Guinea, who work for Voice for Change. We have Clara, who's 28 years old, and she's married with 3 children. She's a young woman leader in Jawaka province in Papua New Guinea. She's also the program coordinator for the Young Women's Leadership Program at Voice for Change. And Angela is also 28 years old. She's the communications officer and a support staff for the Young Women's Leadership Program at Voice for Change. Angela likes to empower other young women to become strong leaders. Do you both want to come off mute and say hello?
Hi, hello everyone. I'm very excited to participate in this event. Thank you for organizing this.
Hello everyone, good morning from Papua New Guinea. This is my first time to be in a Zoom call, but I'm really excited. I hope I'll learn from you guys. Thank you very much, and thank you for the exciting opportunity.
Thank you both. And our final panelist is Anamalia Falamaka from the Talitha Project in Tonga. Anamalia is 18 years old and she's currently a first-year student at the University of the South Pacific in Tonga, pursuing a Bachelor in Laws. Anamalia first participated in a girls' empowerment camp hosted by the Talitha Project when she was 14, and she now supports and encourages the younger girls as a youth mentor for the Talitha Project. Anna, do you want to come say hi?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Malolele in my language. I hope you guys can hear me clearly. It is the afternoon here in the kingdom, and I am very excited to share with you guys some experiences and voices of young Tongan girls and women. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Final introductions quickly. So it's for myself and Emma, who are from the International Women's Development Agency, and we'll be moderating the conversation today, both in the interviews and in the chat. So if you've got any issues, you can reach out to Emma in the chat, or feel free just to come off mute and give me a hoy. Okay. So straight into things. We'll be hearing from our panelists in just a moment, but first we'd like to set the scene for our discussions with the project that we worked on together in 2020. So last year, the International Women's Development Agency, where Emma and I work, began to work with a small cohort of young women from several countries in Asia and the Pacific who plan to attend the Generation Equality Forum. As COVID-19 spread around the world, the cohort shifted their attention to humanitarian projects in their communities. We worked together to record those experiences and co-created a short advocacy video called COVID-19, A Message from Young Women. So we're going to watch that together shortly now to help frame the discussion. I'm going to stop sharing, and Emma, over to you.
We live in fear of lockdown because we know that means an increase in violence and pain, risk of unwanted pregnancy, financial crisis, illness, or hunger.
We cannot attend school, and when we can, we have other worries on our minds.
We are unsafe in our own homes. We are not able to look after our health, and we are worried about the future.
We are far away from our families and friends.
We are lonely and seeking connection.
Everyone is home, but we are expected to do all the cooking, all the cleaning, and all of the childcare.
We're losing our jobs and fighting debt.
Many of us have no access to government support.
Sometimes we cannot feed our families.
We have tried to share our experiences.
When we are hurt or need help, it feels like no one is listening. But we are stepping up. We are leading the call for young women's participation in decision-making.
We are working together to raise awareness of COVID-19 in our communities. We see what's happening in our communities and are letting the world know.
While we wait for the world to stand with us, we are sharing the work.
We sanitize hospitals.
We are providing food and support to those in need.
We are leading bartering systems in community movements. We are up to the challenge.
But we can't do it alone.
We need you to stand with us to create a movement for good.
A movement that shows the world what young women are capable of.
A movement that celebrates our resilience.
Sees that we are powerful and recognizes that our voices matter.
Stand with us by supporting our education and funding our work.
Don't have conversation about us without us. And when our work isn't enough, bridge the gap.
Fund the services we all need to be safe and well.
When you stand with us, we can all benefit. Leaders will act on our concerns. Communities will become stronger, and people will have the resources to thrive.
This future is only possible if you step up and stand with young women.
Thank you for that. Just hop back over to our slides. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about it, but there's a strategy that underpins the Young Women's Leadership video, and there's also a website that includes some specific calls to action that came out of that research. So we'll share a link with you all later on. For now, though, we're very excited to jump into our panel discussion. Let me stop sharing over here. Okay, welcome to those who are just joining us. We've just had a bit of a setting the scene video, and we're now going to jump into our panel discussions with our 5 panelists. I'd encourage you at this point to move your Zoom settings. So up in the top right corner, you can see a little button that says view. If you move to speaker view, what that means is that you'll be able to see each of the panelists as like big on the screen when they're speaking. So I encourage you to do that. Okay, so questions. We saw in the video that a lot of the challenges that young women face have been made worse during the COVID-19 pandemic. And Sivmay, I was wondering, what do you think some of the biggest challenges have been for young women leaders in Cambodia during COVID-19?
Oh. Hi, can you hear me? Kat, can you hear me right?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, thank you for the question. So, hi everyone again. So everyone might be aware that COVID-19 is a global issue that as well Cambodia. So we are right now struggling with it as well. So it does affect to many young women here in Cambodia, and I would love to share with you some of it. So the first thing is about adding more unpaid care work. So unpaid care work is just, I'm sure everyone know about it, but just add a little bit. Unpaid care work is just like the household work, about taking care of people and stuff like that. So in this moment, since the pandemic comes, a lot of school closing in Cambodia at the moment, both in the capital city and in the provinces. So people need to move and study online, right? At the moment, since a lot of people, they are working from home as well. So I mean, every family member is staying at home. And here in Cambodia, there's still a kind of social norms that they believe that the unpaid care work is a woman work. So during this time, young women who stay home and study online, they need to do a lot of more unpaid care work. That's the first thing. For the second things is about the economic crisis. It's like a number of a lot of young women they're dropping from school at the moment. Since the parents got fires from work and stuff because the company or the private sector cannot afford hire them. So a lot of young women, they need to drop out from school and then they need to find a job to support their family. This actually happened in a target group of our organization as well with GATSI. This target group are called in land innovation groups that I've been there, and then I've been talking with a few of the young women that are there. They said that their parents could not even afford buying the phone card to access the internet for their studying, so have no choice but to drop out from school. And some of them even become the beggar on the street just to find something to eat and to have a lot of income. Another thing that is the challenging for young women here in Cambodia is about, I would say, domestic violence and sexual harassment. So during this time, we say that stay home for safe, but actually not really safe for young women. By science, a report from Ligado, which intervened from 2017 to 2020, state that most of girls and women are the victim of rape and attempted rape by their own relative and family, which the report also said that 46% of the victims are sexually abused by their relative, like including their fathers, the stepfather, the uncle, brother-in-law, even the grandfathers. So it's not really safe for young women to stay home at the moment. This actually only this report actually show only the data that people go to report it to the authority. How about those who cannot speak up, who just staying home and being a victim of domestic violence and sexual harassment and stuff like that. I think another thing, like the last thing that I would love to share with all of you, that what is challenging from young women here in Cambodia, it would be about the online harassment. So during the outbreak, students changed their study environment to online and use internet more often. And based on the research of Ministry of Post and Telecommunication in Cambodia, it said that amongst the internet users in Cambodia, 20% of them have received the online harassment. And young women, especially young people, especially young women, are the major victim of it. So there's a lot of things going on here during the pandemics, and yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Sydney. I'm keen to ask you later on about how you think we'll address some of those challenges. But for now, I'd like to jump to Clara. I was just wondering, Clara, how has your experience as a young woman leader in Papua New Guinea changed during the pandemic? What factors have supported your leadership and what new challenges are there? Clara, can you hear us?
Okay. One of the biggest challenges as a young woman leader in Papua New Guinea we faced was violence, as we've shown in the video. There were more violence increased, and especially in our local communities. But as a leader, one of the biggest challenges we faced was the referral pathways or the social services. We can't access it. The social services were inaccessible, like courts, justice, health, or other NGOs that partner with health and work to with the women and children, and also the peace mediation team. So as a young woman leader, they have seen me as one of the agent of Voice for Change and local organization that works on the ground, works for a local human rights organization that works with women with the violence and all this. So when, as a young woman leader from Voice for Change and the Young Women Leadership Program in the community, they see me as as an agent of Voice for Change. So when they face violence during COVID-19 or during lockdown, they run to women leaders, especially, for example, me. So when the survivors come to me, it was stress for me because everything was in a lockdown, shut down, especially the health and police and court justice. So I faced really hard to help them. So for minor cases, I just do counseling and help them with food or clothes or accommodation, whatever. I just help them. But with big problems or issues with young women, I cannot because of unexcessive social services. So that's one of the biggest challenges as a young women leader we faced during COVID-19.
Thanks very much for sharing, Clara. That sounds really heavy. Angela, while you're on the screen as well, I was just wondering, and this is maybe a question for both of you, because I think, Clara, you just started to talk about it then. How has your leadership been visible in your community during the lockdown? So you said that victim survivors of violence will often come to you for help. Are there other ways that you feel you've been leading in your community?
Sorry, can you read the question again, please?
Yeah, of course. So I think one of the things you were talking about was how you've been leading in your community since the lockdowns began, and in the way that survivors of violence will come to you for help. And I was wondering if Angela had some more thoughts as well on how her leadership has been visible in the community.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. As Clara has mentioned, that the referral pathways, or when the survivors came to her, she was referring to Voice for Change, but the services there cannot be accessible because of lockdown. Same applies to me, but I tried my best in help them to counsel them. And some of the trainings that I got from the Young Women Leadership Program at Voice for Change, like the respectful relationship and leadership, some of the words I helped them to just to encourage them, and then yeah, just come provide accommodation or like food and stuff like that. But I cannot do much. I just do what I can.
Sounds challenging. And I know that you've both spoken before about the Young Women's Empowerment Program that Voice for Change runs, is supporting women before a crisis by sharing skills and building those, like you were saying, the respectful relationships, building some norms and skills there, and ways of being independent and supported. Do you want to talk a bit more about that program and why it's important for young women leaders?
Okay, I think this program is really, really important because from experience and I can see that many of the young women we target to train them are the dropout from schools, the ones who doesn't have any hope in their lives and all this. So once we train them, once we recruit them under this program, we train them on skills trainings, leadership skills, and some of the trainings like a respectful relationship, where they can have respectful communication with their husbands or families and all this. So with the skills training that we trained them, it was really, really helpful. Like during COVID-19, people were afraid, and maybe some, they don't have food. Some women, they don't have food to feed their family or food on the table, but those young women who were under this program, we see that they have the skills to grow their own food, like the vegetable skills training. They know how to grow their own foods, preserve their foods, and they know how to look after their money, like they have the financial security there, they have the emergency budget there. So the training was really good. They promote peace in their homes during the time of pandemic and all this. So they have all the skills and knowledge of leadership, how they will look after themselves, their families, how they will have respectful communication within their families, promote peace within their families, and all this. So I think the Young Women Leadership Program, it's really important. And from experience, we see a lot of changes with the young women that they've undergone this training, the program, Young Women Leadership Program.
That's really great. Thank you for sharing, Clara and Angela. And Amalia, I'm wondering if I could ask you a related question. Why do you think it's important that girls and young women are included in public decision-making spaces?
Thank you so much for the question. I hope you guys can hear me. And if you guys don't, please do not hesitate to signal me. So in relation to the question, why do I think it is important that girls and young women are included in public decision-making spaces? Firstly, inclusion is a big word, right? I mean, to me, it is quite big because it has 9 letters in it, so that's quite big. But jokes aside, inclusion is also a very difficult thing to accomplish and achieve in the society, in my country, and I know in the world as a whole. And I think the reason being, most especially, the reason why it is quite difficult to include young girls and young women in public decision-making spaces is because sometimes we are still seen by our communities, our leaders, our parents, sometimes we are still seen as children. Sometimes they think that we are still not matured enough to join and participate in these public decision-making spaces and help in decision-making. And to me, it is important that we as girls and young women are involved in these public decision-making spaces, because in most of these public decision-making spaces, this is where they are discussing their future. This is where they are discussing and shaping the world that we are going to be living tomorrow. So in my opinion, and as shown by the video, and I agree with the COVID-19 video showed earlier, if we are discussing the world in which we are going to be living in tomorrow, if we are discussing the world in which we as young girls, young women are going to be leading and becoming doctors and future prime ministers or mothers, I believe that our voices and our ideas, our opinions are very much needed in these public decision-making spaces, so that we could contribute and probably bring up the issues that we as young girls and young women in the society are facing, and just to inform others as well as our leaders about the different things that is going in our society that we as young girls, young women are feel threatened by. And so I think that is exactly why we should be included, is because our voices do matter in these type of decision making to help make the world a safer and healthy place for us to live in the future. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Anna. I could not have said it better myself. I don't think that all makes a lot of sense, that the people who are most affected by an issue need to be contributing to the solutions about it. I have another question to ask you later, but I'm going to ask Ramona now. What skills do you think that young women should develop to address the needs of people in this COVID-19 new normal?
Thank you so much for the question. And I really am impressed and pleased at all of the wonderful contributions thus far. So I would group them in different categories, but I think the first one may not be necessarily a skill, but self-care and self-awareness, and knowing what you can handle and what you can shoulder. Because although the expectations might be quite great, we need to be mindful that we don't put unreasonable expectations on young women to implement everything. There's only so much that they can do, and we need to be appreciative of that, and for them to be confident and to be able to say, this is what I am comfortable and able to deliver at this time. And with that confidence and that self-awareness in terms of being able to network at the community level, to understand what activities are taking place within the community. Other people might have similar ideas, other young women, so there might be synergy at the community level. And through that, being able to access microfunding, being able to apply for microfunding to support very small-scaled initiatives, because assistance is needed across the country in many different ways. And it's okay if there's duplication at small levels, because sometimes funding is not available for like a wide scale program. For example, another NGO is delivering training on STEM. And so some of Brangle youth are going to partake in that training to be able to assist their own young people in their own communities who we've had, a lot of school interruptions, not only due to lockdown, but because a lot of people have lost their jobs. So the ability to travel to school, pay school fees. So we do always have, fluctuations in attendance, and that's been exacerbated by flooding recently, so that they can lend their skills at the community level. In that networking, negotiating, it helps them to raise their own individual visibility. I'm not yet that young, it can be documented, but I do work with my students who are the very young ones. And the incredible power social media can have to highlight the work that's being done, to raise visibility, both the good, the bad, the challenges, so that other people can say, hey, I really like the work that you're doing. Would you be interested in collaborating, or perhaps we can sponsor some of the work that you're doing? And this seems to be an area that will continue to expand. So social media skills, being able to narrate and document the work that they're doing effectively so that it doesn't get lost over time. And also to be comfortable in identifying their own strengths and weaknesses. And it's fine that there's some things we're really good at and some things we're not so good at. So that young women can find things that they're really passionate about. And you'd be surprised, there's so many different avenues that assistance can be rendered to the community. That's all for me. Thank you for the question.
Thanks so much, Ramona. We've got a few more questions to ask our panelists before we have a quick discussion with the participants who are in the room. So Clara, I was wondering if I could ask you another question. What resources do you think young women need to be safe during disasters like COVID-19 and to be leaders?
Okay, I think some of the resources that young women need to be safe during the pandemic like COVID-19, I think we really need to empower young women. So from experience, as I have said, from the Young Women Leadership Program, they are becoming resourceful. Like they have the financial security, they have the food on the table to feed their families during the pandemic and all this. So if we truly empower women, like train them, include them in the Young Women Leadership Program, they will be educated, they will gain skills on how to grow vegetables, financial literacy, how to look after their money, look after the livelihood skills and all this. So when they are being trained on this one, they will be, their leadership will be also empowered, they will be skilled, and they will have enough knowledge on how to look after their family, look after their communities and all this. Okay, from experience, I will share some of how the Young Women Leadership really empowered the young women during COVID-19. Was like for me, during the pandemic, I was able to provide food for my family because I got trained from the program, and I have the skills that helped me to produce my own food, have the enough finance to support my family and all this. So I feel that if we really train more young women and in this Young Women Leadership Program, it will help them, because Voice for Change is targeting only 30 young women from the first group, and the second group was 34 and all this, but this is a less number. There are more young women in Jiwaka, there are more young women in Papua New Guinea. So if we truly fund this program, it will reach more young women in the province and country too. So when there are more young women leaders, they will they will advocate more on or do awareness on pandemic like COVID-19 because they have more skills, more knowledge on this, and also they will have the skills to stand strong during the those kind of crisis or pandemic. So I think that with the support from a very strong organization on the ground, like Voice for Change is a rural organization, it was really supportive during that time. It supported the young women leaders from the community, especially me and Angela too. The organization has supported us in doing the awareness on COVID-19 instead of the health departments coming to the community and do awareness on what is COVID-19, how can we prevent ourselves from this pandemic and all this. But an organization like Voice for Change on the ground was really supportive and take the initiative to help us support the young women to do the awareness with supporting information, supplies, and all this. So I feel that some of the resources that the young women need is women empowerment. Like we can fund more or support more in the Young Women Leadership Program.
That's really great, Clara.
Thank you.
I think it's a great point as well that when young women and women are supported to be safe and to be confident and have skills, they benefit their whole communities. Like being able to run programs like the COVID-19 awareness, that's a benefit for everyone. Angela, I was wondering while we have you on screen, if I could ask you a question too. Is your community in Jawaka supportive of your leadership, and who supports you to be a leader?
Thank you very much. My community is very supportive, but especially Voice for Change is really empowered me to become a strong women leader. It empowered me through the trainings, and it empowered me to be confident and to become a young women leader, to become a role model and gain confidence and given space to me in decision making through the trainings and through all the programs through the Young Women Leadership Empowerment Program. And my community see me as a change maker, as a role model, and a respected young woman in my community through Voice for Change. And yes, they are very supportive.
That's great. It's really good to hear, Angela. I feel like Voice for Change has a really wonderful model of intergenerational mentoring and leadership. So it's, I think, something that we've all got something to learn from. Okay, my next question is back to Ramona. I was just wondering, in your work with Brown Girl Woke in Samoa, how have you seen older women supporting younger women and girls to develop their leadership skills and confidence?
Thank you for the question, Kate. I speak not only as a member of Brown Girl Woke, but also as an instructor at the Faculty of Health Science as I respond to this question. Last year during lockdown, we did a project piloting reusable pads and running alongside that menstrual health and hygiene education using our third-year students at the university. And that provided a really wonderful platform for young women to take the lead in terms of delivering content, leading focus group discussions, and really to have that kind of active engagement. I appreciate all the work that Doris has done in terms of mentoring young women and young people to be able to lead the community-led activities. So you're part of you're a gatekeeper and a mentor, but then also allowing them to take the reins. So they're part of the program. They know where they're responsible. So they engage at that point. And then over time, it allows them to take more and more responsible roles.
So you mentioned, oh, sorry.
For me, I think that older persons who have the networks need to start introducing younger women to those networks, being a gatekeeper by introducing and mentoring them to gain the confidence to take over, essentially.
I think that's a really great point, like mentioning that people who have been doing this work for a long time do have really valuable relationships and networks and collaborations. So being able to really intentionally bring young people in. And there was something else that I really liked about what you said around making sure people know where their responsibility is. So bringing people in as co-creators and saying, this is the bit that you're leading and what can I do to support that? I think that's really beautiful. Is there anything else you wanted to add there, Ramona?
No.
Okay, thank you. Sifme, I was wondering if we could come back to you. I'm really keen to hear your suggestions on how either your organization or government or other women's rights actors can help to address the increasing challenges that young women are facing during COVID-19 in Cambodia.
Okay, thank you. So I've been raising a few challenges previously. So related to unpaid care work, I think it is very important to change people's mindset. So starting with the issues that the closer to the heart and the mind of everyone, and raising awareness, sharing and learning about the very task as basic housework, and start to discuss about the equal sharing responsibility as it important for the mainstreaming of gender equality from personal to and then to community and then to national, which is political. So it's time to make people think that doing housework or unpaid care work is not a sense of like men or women helping each other, but sharing responsibility because it's everyone's, work. Also, I think law and policy and national action plan also important. So government should allocate the budget in order to implement law and policy that promote status of women to achieve inequality, and strictly enforce any practice that move forward those gender equality objectives, as well as punishing any acts that interfere or violate the law and political to avoid reinforcement of negative stereotype and gender bias and discriminatory mindset. It's about the online harassment. Even there's a campaign from the related ministries such as Ministry of Posts and Telecommunication in Cambodia. They have a campaign called Tip Phu Ton in Khmer language, which somehow means thinking or protecting your children in English, and it purpose is to provide useful tips and information to parents, guardian, teacher, and to the general public about protecting the children from online risk. From my own opinion, I think that it's still we need to take the action on developing a guideline on how to deal with the online harassment and spreading it and promoting it to the remote area, because I think the campaign is okay for the modern parents in the city, but for those who live in the remote areas, I mean, if they happen that the children have received or the victim of online harassment, I'm pretty sure that they will just stop the children from accessing to the internet, which is can affect their studying at the moment during the pandemic. And well, it's also important that it's not only the government, but the related stakeholder to join and help spreading awareness to have a better change in society. Yeah, I think those are my suggestions.
Those are really, really great suggestions. I think it's important to draw out how it's different for young women and children in urban and rural areas. I think that's really important. Thank you. Okay, and Amalia, our last question for today. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about how, in your experience, what you think helps women and girls to become leaders in Tonga. And I was wondering if you have any words of encouragement for other young women leaders who might be listening.
Thank you so much for the question. I hope you guys can still hear me. But I think there are many factors that could help a young girl and women become leaders here in Tonga. We have so many factors, but I think to name a few, I think the work of our NGOs here in the country and the NGOs in separate countries are very important because they really do empower these young girls and women to become leaders in Tonga. Personally, I wanted to share that if you were to ask 5 years ago, if you were to ask me if I had a feeling of becoming, or if I knew that I would become a leader today, I don't think my answer would be yes. Mainly because at that time I didn't feel empowered, not only internally, but I wasn't empowered with the knowledge about the different issues that we are facing. I wasn't empowered with the knowledge that I could help make a change in the world that we live in. And through Galita Project, I have come to learn so many things about the different issues that not only girls here in Tonga are facing, but girls in the Pacific region and worldwide, the issues that they are facing. But as there's a saying here in Tonga that it takes a village to raise a child, and so our NGOs cannot do it alone. I think the support of our leaders, church leaders, government leaders, the support from our leaders, the support from our community and our parents is a very big necessity that we need in order to help our young women and young girls become leaders someday. I know that there is a lot of young girls out there and young women who are, they have what it needs to become a leader. But I think that, and I believe that the only thing that is left to do is to believe in them. And so to have our communities and our church leaders and just everyone have that faith in us would really, really do help us and help us feel that we do matter and that we could become someone someday and become leaders someday. So thank you so much. And sorry, I just remembered the second part of the question. So just a word of encouragement to other young women. From the panel discussion, I am really, really, I'm really thankful for all the different work that everyone is doing in their separate countries. And I just want to encourage everyone to continue on doing what they're doing and helping to make a change in their countries. I know that with COVID, it does seem to discourage us a little, and I could say that because if you guys do not know, here in Tonga, Tonga is one of the few countries in the Pacific and in the world that has yet to have a single COVID case. And although that might seem as a good thing, it does not eliminate the fact that we are still living in fear. We're living in constant fear of a day that we would go to sleep and wake up the next morning and everything has changed because we have a COVID case. So I do feel a little of what you guys are experiencing in your countries with those who have COVID in their countries. But I just want to encourage you guys to just keep doing what you guys are doing. Help our societies and our world become a better place to live in. And to do so, I think that each and every one of us should always have love in our hearts and in our minds, because when we do have love in our hearts and in our minds, we would open our eyes to see our peers suffering, and we would reach out and help them. With love in our hearts and in our minds, we would open our eyes to see the different issues that our world is facing, and to accept the fact that our world is indeed dying, but we would also be encouraged to help prevent that from happening by making small changes that you guys already are doing in your community. So I just want to encourage you guys to keep doing what you're doing, keep believing in yourself, and keep making a change in the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. That's such a beautiful note to end on. So we're just having a look at the schedule now. We had originally planned to go into some breakout rooms, but it looks like we've got a smaller audience today, which is nice. So we've got, I guess, the option of having a quick discussion in small groups, or we can jump straight to question and answer with the panelists. If you're listening in the audience, feel free to put your video on to send us your thoughts in the chat. I can see there's a couple of messages that have come through. So I can ask those of the panelists if you would like. Can I get, maybe if you want to give a reaction, you can give a thumbs up if you're happy for us to move into Q&A, or you can give us the clapping hands if you would like us to have some quick breakout discussions. See some thumbs up. Lots of thumbs up, okay. That is sounding good. The other thing I'm just going to flag now, I'm going to be the embarrassing aunt in the room. It'd be lovely to get a photo of everybody or a screenshot of everybody before we go. So it would be wonderful to have everybody's videos on before we end the call, but I'll just give you a heads up that we'll come back to that a little bit later on. Lisa, I can see you had your hand up. Was that an accident or did you have a question to ask? Okay.
That was an accident.
Okay.
Sorry.
No worries at all. Okay, so some questions. The first one that we have here, somebody has asked, what top three things can current leaders do practically to ensure that young women are included in decision making? Are there any panelists who would like to start us off by answering that question? I'll just repeat it. What things can people who are in leadership positions now do to include young women in decision making?
In terms of program design, bringing in young women at the design phase so that they contribute into the planning and implementation from that point.
Definitely. Does anybody else have thoughts they would like to add?
For me, I think can give them more space and opportunity to develop themselves through any, just give them the opportunity and involve in any decision making, like, or any program to develop a skill. But it's not only just skill, but let them in. Yes.
Yeah, it's important. I think it was really good listening to you speak before, Ramona, about what older women can do as gatekeepers. So introducing people to their networks, making sure young women know what they're responsible for and having the support to make decisions. Because I think, Anna, you mentioned before, it can be difficult within our communities when young women are seen as being too young or not mature enough. So making sure there are people in the room who say, nope, I see your leadership. You are capable of making this decision. Was there anything you'd like to add on that?
I just wanted to say, I think the first step for our leaders to help us be involved in this public decision making is just create an environment for us where we feel that our voices do matter, starting at home and at schools and also in the community. To just begin small like that, it would really help in the long run. And from there on, I think our young girls and young women would feel empowered and feel empowered to join the public decision-making spaces. So, yeah.
Thanks so much, Anna. There's another question here. So if anybody wants to keep up talking about that last question, I'll ask this new one. So the question is kind of saying part of the COVID-19 response will be led by NGOs and the women's rights and feminist movements. So are there any other ideas for how those movements and NGOs can include and support young women in their programming? I think we've spoken a little bit about that just now, but is there anything specifically you can think of? So I'm thinking Angela and Clara, you've talked about some of the economic and financial management skills and livelihood skills. Is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, one of the top three.
Okay, the trainings, skills trainings and the financial skills training that we train young women, they are being skilled enough to being strong in times of pandemic and all this. So I think we can support more. We can support more young women, support any young women leadership programs in the country or within the region. Like Papua New Guinea, we have, I think we have 2 programs that we work, we train young women, like the BWF, Bokwenville Women's Federation, they have the Young Women Leadership Program, and we in Jiwaka in the islands of PNC, we have Voice for Change is running this program. And I think when we train more young women, we'll really see some changes in our community and province, because when there are young women in the community, they will take lead in making awareness and all this. From my experience, I see that during the pandemic, we didn't see any other NGOs, especially the Anglicare or the health department or any other government departments come into the community and do awareness on COVID-19 and all this, but with the support and very strong organization like Voice for Change, it helped doing the awareness, supported the young women to do the awareness and all this, and that's where our leadership also become visible, because we as women leaders, they see us as they see us as in a patriarchy society. Women are not allowed to talk and all this, and a young woman to become a leader is very challenging and all this. But the pandemic, as COVID-19, has given us the opportunity for us young women leaders to stand up and show the community that we can do awareness, or we can talk and all this, become leaders and all this. So with the support from Voice for Change, it helped us doing awareness and all this, really stand out our leadership. So as we do the awareness, the community start to see our leadership and respect us. We gain respect from that. Okay, from my own experience, after I did an awareness on COVID-19, communities start to see my leadership, and just recently our councillor from the local level government has seen my leadership and appointed me as a one of the member for his ward committee. So now I am a ward committee member in my council ward, and he also said, you are a young woman leader and I respect you, and he had some good comments on me. So he also appointed me to become the treasurer for his ward, council award, and I am also one of the signatory for his account and all this. So that's what I experienced from the program, and it's really good. Thank you.
That's
Am
so
I
great.
answering your question?
That's perfect. You answered it so well. Thank you. It's exciting to hear the long-term, like the opportunities that come up through this, like for communities to see what young women are doing. It's really, really great to hear. So we've got just over 15 minutes left in the session. So I can see that Alice has sent a message in the chat. Alice, would you like to come off mute and read that out for the panelists?
Sure thing. Can you hear me okay? Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for the discussion today. It's been really interesting. My question for the panel is, what are some of the barriers that you've seen to young women's leadership and participation in CSW? And what would you like to see change to better empower young women to participate in this kind of forum?
Is there anybody who'd like to start just thinking about your experiences with this event or CSW more broadly?
I can't speak too much about the barriers in terms of leadership and participation in CSW because this has been the first event. But in terms of things in terms of going forward, that in different regions, reaching out to key organizations to do basically like stock takes of work that's being done by young women leaders so that they can be identified and form a network in advance of CSW events to see what people would be interested in participating in and to document the experiences along the way, but also to identify specific areas of need to support more participation. For example, if there is a rural NGO that doesn't have access to internet, perhaps they can be provided with that support in advance. Because with the new normal, a lot of the challenges that are present now might still continue in the future. But what's really, I would still say, is a valuable opportunity is through the social media, this platform such as Zoom, to widen the participation from many more countries and many more young women leaders who are not constrained by transportation and visa requirements and so it's much more cost effective for their organizations.
I think it's also worth mentioning the challenges and benefits in online CSW is presented this year. Like most of our panelists, this is their first time, and my first time and Kate's first time at a CSW. And for so many of us, we actually wouldn't have been able to participate if it was in New York. It's so far away, it's so expensive, it's not particularly accessible for young women. So I think it's presented a lot of opportunities, particularly in this group alone. But also challenges such as time differences, as Ramon mentioned, access to internet, access to laptops, etc. So yeah, I think those are definitely worth considering in terms of barriers and opportunities of an online CSW in the future.
Really great
I have
point.
something to share as well. So I'm not really different from the others about the barrier of participating in CSW, but I just would like to share about the barrier of women in leadership here in our content, like speaking from my own experience. So the first thing is about the age gap. I mean, the elderly people saying that you are too young and then just lack of experiences, so you need to listen to other people, like to the older people. And sometimes they let us involved. I mean, it's not only young people, but women in general. They let us involve and give us the opportunity, but still, we do not have enough opportunity to involve in decision making. So yeah, that would be the barriers of women leadership in our content.
Really good point.
Can I share as well?
Yeah, of course.
I think one of the barriers for participation of young women and younger leaders to the CSW event, I think is just, I don't think there's much word out there for people to know about that there's something called the CSW. I think in overseas countries and elsewhere, you guys probably have a lot of ways to get people informed about this. But here in Tonga, I have to speak from experience. Majority of our young girls and leaders are not well informed about certain events and forums like this, where they could participate in and like raise up their voices. Like there are opportunities out there in the world that they could express their opinions and ideas. And I think, you know, I just suggest that if you guys could reach out to our NGOs probably to do the work of getting people informed about these different events so they could participate in that could overcome the barriers. And moreover, the barriers for women leadership here in Tonga, I could say, is our culture. If you do know Tonga, it has a rich and bold culture, and that is, I think, one of the biggest barriers to women in leadership, because in our culture, it is mostly known that men are the leaders in practically everything, from families to our communities to the government. And so overcoming that barrier is a very difficult thing to do, but we are slowly overcoming it. And my hope for the future is that one day I could be the future Prime Minister of Tonga. So thank you very much.
I hope for that too. You'd make a great Prime Minister, Anna. Were there any other questions from the audience that you would like to ask before we wrap up today? You can feel free to write it in the chat box or come off mute.
Hi, this is Bronwyn here. I've got a question about what benefits you've seen in collaborating with each other across countries and regions, and whether that's been helpful for you in your leadership journeys to learn from other people in different countries and regions, or whether that's another burden on your time.
Can I answer the question?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so I think one of the benefits from collaborating with other people in the Pacific, you know, with collaborating with each other, is that we get to share information. We get to share with each other the issues that we are facing, and together we are able to design and come up with certain solutions to address these issues by helping each other out. I could say, I think 2 years ago, we went to Fiji, and different girls from around the Pacific region came together. We had girls from Papua New Guinea, we had girls from Samoa, Fiji, and we came together to talk about the different issues that we faced in our own individual countries, and to be able to hear the different issues that each countries are facing. We were able to see the similarities in the issues that we were facing. And so from there on, we were able to work together to plan out a way that we could each go back. You know, we could share our opinions with each other, and then we would share the way that we could address our issues. And so each participant were able to gain the information and then go back to their own separate countries and address these issues. So I think working together is a very important thing to do, you know, to address the issues that we have. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Anna. Would any other panelists like to answer that question?
Just briefly, so Brangle work as part of the We Rise Coalition, and as a relatively young NGO in Samoa, we are still on our journey towards building the I would say the infrastructure in terms of, you know, all of the necessary policies and documentation that come alongside with formalizing the work of an NGO. And within the coalition, it's been incredibly beneficial to meet with other NGOs who have gone through the journey, who can provide great insight in terms of how they've overcome the challenges, to provide guidance. And it helps the feeling that you're not alone in going through this path. So that's been, and it continues to be, and we hope it will, you know, yield wonderful benefit moving forward.
That's great. Thank you for sharing, Ramona. Angela, I saw that you had some responses in the chat box, echoing what Anna was saying, I think.
So I have something to add on as well.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for sharing. I have to agree with everything that everyone said, because but another benefit, I think, is about the making networking. So we might come from a different background and stuff, but the world needs everyone to come from different religion to collaborate with each other and make it become a better place. So we can't, the benefit is we can just come and sharing experience and addressing the issues, and can share the solution, and making everyone is like feel like we need each other to make this work. Yeah.
Those are all such good points. Does anybody else have anything they would like to add? If not, we've got a question for the audience members in the room to put you on the spot. It would be great to hear what you think you'll be taking away from the meeting today. If there's anything that the panelists have spoken about that really resonated with you, or that you think will help inform your behaviours going forward. Is anybody who's feeling like coming off mute and sharing?
Hi, it's Bronwyn again. Just to kick things off, I think it was Ramona who said earlier that, you know, it's important for people who have relationships and networks to really be intentional about including young women in those relationships and including them in their networks. I think often as an older person, you don't see yourself as an older person, and that those relationships are valuable and that you've developed over time. So I think that's what I'll be taking away from today, to be more intentional about including young women in those networks that I am lucky to have.
Thanks, Bron.
Hi everybody, Jane Alva is my name. I've loved being part of this session, just to listen to the incredibly strong and articulate voices of the young women panelists. And my biggest takeaway is the excitement of when, now that I know Anamalia's name, I'm going to celebrate when she becomes Prime Minister.
That's a call out for anyone on the panelists to go into politics. You'd all be great. Thanks, Jane. Were there any final contributions that people would like to make before we close the event for today?
May I share something?
Yeah, of course.
This is for another project. I wear many hats. On International Women's Day, I was event coordinator for a high-level women and political participation panel discussion here in Samoa. And we had really wonderful, rich discussion between the youth in the audience and these very esteemed panelists. And I'm thinking, Anna, next year for International Women's Day, wouldn't it be lovely to have a panel of young women discussing women in political participation in their respective countries? I think that would be just wonderful. I'm happy to provide any assistance you need for that next year. That's in March, so I'll keep track of that.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited about it already.
It's so sweet. Okay, we've got 5 minutes left. So I'm going to take this opportunity to start closing the event. If you do have something else you would like to add, please feel free to turn your video on or throw your hand up or comment in the chat box. So I suppose the first place to start is an enormous thank you for everybody who's come along today. It's been a really rich discussion, and I feel very privileged to have had the chance to work with all the panelists. You're all incredible young women and you've got so much to offer. I would love for us all, if you have a stable internet connection and feel comfortable, to turn your video on. I would love to grab a photo of everyone while we've got the chance. Does that sound okay? I'll count us in so you can make sure you're not doing anything weird with your face. It's always my issue. I'm always mid-yawn or something. Okay. Once we're all set up, I'll count us down with a 3. Hold on. I'm not going to go straight. With a 3, 2, 1. After the 1, I'll take the photo. Okay. So 3, 2, 1. And we're going to do a backup one just in case. So we'll count down again. We'll go 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Thank you very much. So some final bits of housekeeping. Emma's just put a link in the chat box that has a link to a Google form, so you can add your contact details there if you'd like to stay in touch or reach out about any collaborations. We have a website that has a link to the video that we showed at the beginning of this session. It also has a young women's empowerment strategy that talks about ways that organizations and human rights defenders can work with young women and build their power. Really encourage you to have a look at that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Emma, is there anything that I'm missing?
No, I think that's everything. Thanks to the panelists, everyone for coming, and feel free to check out the website and the video.
Thank you. Panelists, is there any final words you'd like to say before we close?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you very much to the organizers, to my fellow panelists, and to the is it audience members, participants? Yes, who joined us today. I'm learning all of this new lingo, but thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for coming in.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, well, we'll let you go. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye. Bye. Thank you very much.
Just staying around in case anybody had any final questions or wanted to do a big breath together. Okay.
Well, there's only a few of us left, but that was great.
Hi. Congratulations if Angela and Clara and Ramona are still in the room. Spoke so well.
Best wishes for the rest of the day. I have to get prepared for my class now.
Thank you so
Good
much
luck.
for coming, Ramona. Bye.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if Angela and Clara might still be there.
I think it's just you and me.
Wonderful. Congratulations. We did the thing.
Well done. Good job. Oh, is this still recording?
Yes. Let me stop that.